If you've never crocheted before and you are feeling drawn to making things with your hands, you are in exactly the right place. I'm Fiona, and over the years I have taught hundreds of people how to crochet, both in in-person crochet workshops and right here on this channel. Many of them started just like you, curious about this craft, but a bit unsure about where to start. Crochet doesn't have to be rushed or complicated, and in this video I'm going to slow things right down so that you can build a creative practice that feels calm, satisfying and completely doable. So before you get worrying about different crochet patterns and different stitches, let's take a moment, grab your hook and some yarn, and I'm going to take you through that very first step of making your beginning chain. So when you're learning to crochet, the hook size and the fibre and the yarn or the wool that you're using doesn't really have that much of an impact, but you can see on the yarn label that you're using that it gives a recommended hook size or needle size. And as you can see, the millimetre measurement is actually the same. So in the case of this yarn, I am going to be using this 6mm crochet hook, and it's just a bit bigger than those smaller yarns, so we can see our stitches a little bit easier. Now I always retain my ball band, as this is called, or the wrapper around the yarn, and to make sure that I can always do that, I don't use this end of the yarn that is showing. I do something that's called center pulling. So with the ability to read the yarn label, if it's that way written or that way, you're going to come in from this side of the yarn and put your fingers into the middle, kind of pinch together. There'll be a lump of yarn on the inside, quite far in, and I'm just going to pull the whole lot out. It's going to go wrong now, isn't it? Oh no, not too bad. And you'll see that a large section of yarn comes out. We're probably going to use a lot of this today, so don't worry too much about what comes out. And then in here, so I'm just trying to do this quickly, you're going to find the center of the ball. What we are looking for is the very tail end of that yarn, and that's what that's going to be called forever. This is the tail, the end of the yarn, and all the other yarn that's attached to the ball is called the working yarn. So before we can start to make our chain and before we place it onto our hook, we have to make our slip knot. And the easiest way that I've learnt and that I show people to make a slip knot is to simply place the tail of the yarn in your palm. I bring those two fingers down to kind of make something to anchor the yarn to, and wrap the yarn around my finger. So I've got the tail in my palm, quite a nice, reasonably long tail, and then I've simply placed it over my fingers and then wrapped it around again. From here, we are simply going to bring the yarn that's closest to our thumb over the top, and then the yarn that is now at the back, we're going to bring over and off our fingers, pulling those tails to create that slip knot. You'll have a loop, a tail, and your working yarn. The joy is with a slip knot is that it can very easily become undone until we start working. I'm going to show you that again. So we place the tail of the yarn in our palm, wrap the yarn around our finger, so we kind of bring it over the top and around. So you end up with what looks like two loops on your finger. Going to bring the loop that's closest to our thumb, comes over the top and stays on the finger, and then this new back loop comes over and off. If you pull the tails, it creates a lovely slip knot and a loop. You can practice that a few times until you feel confident in making your slip knot. And once you're feeling a little bit happier with that, we can grab our crochet hook. Doesn't matter which way you insert your hook through the loop, just place the loop onto your hook, and then we're going to pull the ends and the strands to tighten it up to the size of the crochet hook. This is a really good time to mention that your crochet hook will bevel, and it's this part of the crochet hook that matches the measurement on our hook. How you hold your hook is entirely up to you. This is generally known as a knife hold, as if you're going to cut your food, and an alternative way tends to be a pen hold, and that's regardless if you're left-handed or right-handed. So it doesn't matter which way you're holding it, as long as it's comfortable for you. There is no right or wrong way to hold your crochet hook. It is completely personal to you, and it's important that no one tells you otherwise. So if you are holding it like a pen, or you're comfortable holding it as a knife hold, it's whatever is comfortable for you. From this point, we're going to start making our beginning chain. Now what you will notice is if you start moving your yarn, your loop will be moving as well. And that's kind of what we want. We don't want this too loose. We don't want it too tight either. You want it to move across your hook nicely. What I would recommend is placing your finger onto the loop so that it doesn't spin around, and because we're going to start wrapping the yarn around the hook. So I place my finger onto that loop just to kind of secure it a little bit, and then how you hold your yarn, well, again, is very unique. You will see people that wrap it around lots of different fingers. I'm very simple. I just grab it into the palm of my hand. So this is the working yarn, just securing it into the palm of the hand and place it over the top of my pointy finger. Very simple. If you find that this yarn is flapping about and it's really loose and everything, don't worry too much about how you're securing everything right now. We're just going to get used to the action, and we can worry about how we hold it if we need to wrap it around another finger before we secure it. It's way too tight for me that way. I just grab it and get it up in the air. From here, we're going to bring the yarn from the back of the hook over the top towards you. So we don't want to be coming in this direction. We want to be bringing it over the back of the hook to the front towards you. And ideally, the yarn is going to catch in our hook. So we need to keep it a little bit further back, which is why I have it in that direction over my finger. I'm then going to secure the loop on my hook with my left hand. Doesn't matter how you hold it, if you've got it just wrapped and then you can move it. What we're looking to do is to use the hook to bring the yarn through the loop on our hook. And by pinching where the tail is or the slip knot, it gives us a little bit more space. And you see there's a slight bit of light coming underneath that hook. And we're going to bring this loop over the top by using our hook to bring it through. Now, of course, I've made that look really easy and you may well be struggling, and that's okay. So there's lots of different ways to bring that loop over as you're getting used to this technique and used to holding your yarn. We're going to bring the yarn up and over the hook towards you. Everything's still quite movable. We don't want everything too tight. And then we're going to use our hook. See how loose that loop is? I want to be able to get that hook through that loop. Just like that. If you are really struggling, see, the minute you let go, it flips. You can kind of just hold that into position and bring the loop through like that. Obviously, they're going to be a bit different tension, and we're not going to worry about our tension right now. We're just getting this action of trying to get used to holding our hook and bringing the yarn up from the back over the front and using our hook ideally to bring that yarn through. So it doesn't matter if they're all loosey-goosey at the moment, we're just practicing getting the hook through that loop. Bring the yarn up and over the top. Use our hook to catch that working yarn and bring it through. Over the top, and then I do secure it with my left hand to bring it through. To see me doing it how I would actually chain for my project, once I've secured the yarn in my right working hand or non-hook hand, I'm yarning over and bringing it through. Yarning over and bringing it through. I mean, this is not the speed I do it at either, but also I have years of practice. But you'll see they're not perfectly all one size at the present moment, and that's okay. We're only practicing. The important thing to remember is the direction that you're bringing the yarn over the hook. So from the back over the front, and then we're creating a little bit of space to bring our hook head through. Now you will notice that after each chain, I'm bringing my hook back to that fatter part of the hook, not where it's beveling, so that I do get some uniform sizing from my chains, but again, that will come with practice. I'm just holding my yarn in different ways so you can see that it doesn't matter which way you hold your yarn, just as long as you're bringing it up from the back over the front, and I'm securing that loop with my hook hand while I bring it over so that it doesn't spin out of control. So let me know in the comments if you are finding this easier or if it's a bit of a challenge, if you're struggling to hold your yarn and get any tension. Don't worry that it's not perfect the first time. There's a lot happening between holding your hook and getting used to that, putting your finger onto the loop, bringing your yarn up and over. I'm struggling to do it in knife hold, sorry. Oh, pen hold, sorry. And then using your hook to move the yarn about. Also going to point out that if it falls off your hook, do not worry, the world will not end. It'll only undo if you start pulling your working yarn. Don't do that unless you really want to. And then if you're going to reinsert your hook, you want to place your hook just back through that loop. There is a right way and a wrong way. So this working yarn that's attached to the ball of yarn, you want the front of the loop facing you and that working yarn at the back, and put your hook back through and then pop your finger back on before you yarn over the hook towards you and bring it back through. So it really doesn't matter how you're holding your yarn at this moment. You just want a little bit of tension after you've yarned over, but not too much that it's too hard to get your hook through. And with practice, it will become much easier. That's not me speeding it up, that's the speed that I go, because with years of practice, they all come out the same size and they're obviously more uniform. But we're not looking for that today. We just want to get used to the action of placing your finger on, yarning over, creating a bit of space to bring your hook through smoothly and calmly. Once you've made a few chains, grab a pair of scissors because I'm going to show you how you would fasten off. The easy way to fasten off any of our crochet projects is we make a knot by making a chain, believe it or not. So just like we've been doing, we're going to make one final chain. So we yarn over the hook and bring it through, and then we're going to cut the yarn. Now it's always important, if this was a real project, that we leave enough yarn to say that we were going to weave our ends in. So you're looking between about 12 inches of yarn. We then cut the yarn. And what we need to do is to bring that end through the previous loop. This loop on our hook is active. We can move it about and make it bigger, but that last chain that we made is going to act as a knot. So we just need to bring that end through. And the simplest way to do that is to make this loop really large so that that end of the yarn comes through the loop. Tug on it gently and it will make a knot that's quite secure. That slip knot that we could undo previously is also a knot at the other end of our chain. Your chain should be springy, hopefully, and not too stiff. If it's really loose, don't worry. Loose is better than tight for when you're going to progress on to the next stage of working back into your chain. Now, I always like to do things twice, so we're going to do everything again before you head off to the next stage. So find your tail of your yarn and we're going to make our slip knot once again and place it into the palm of your hand. With the working yarn, wrap it over your finger so you have 2 loops. We're going to start by bringing that loop closest to our thumb over the top and leaving it on our finger, and then using that loop that's now at the back and closest to our thumb, sorry mine's a bit loose, we're going to bring that back loop over and off. We're going to pull those ends and create our slip knot. We then place that loop onto our crochet hook, and then using the yarn, we're just going to pull those strands to tighten it to the width of our crochet hook. Making sure that you leave your tail dangling, we're going to pick up the working yarn and secure it in our hands, whichever way is comfortable, and place our finger onto the loop just to secure it and stop it spinning. Going to get that working yarn and bring it from the back of the hook over the top, and then we're going to secure the slip knot and the tail, allowing it to move freely with that working yarn catching into that hook, and bring it through the loop on your hook. We're going to do that for a few more times, and then I'm going to show you how to count your beginning chains. So we bring the yarn over the hook towards you and bring it through the loop on your hook. Don't have to do too many, we're just going to do a few together so that we can then count what we have. So bringing it over the top towards you and bringing it through the loop on your hook. So when you have a few chains on your hook, it might be a bit wonky, but don't worry too much. We're not looking for perfection here. But what I want you to be able to see is that when you're looking at your chain here, they look like V's. They're a bit wonky, one side's higher than the other. That's okay, we're not judging. But what we do want to do is to know how many chains we've made. So it's important to know that this loop on your hook never counts as a stitch or a chain. And then underneath you have your V's. The easiest way to count your chains is to count one side of your V's. Now this is our slip knot right here at the bottom. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 chains here. I'm trying to get them all in one shot for you. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you're counting your chains, let us know in the comments how many you made. This isn't a particularly long chain, it's just to give us an idea. And what's really fun is if you turn your chain around, you'll see the other side looks almost more like a plait. So you've got V's on one side and a plait on the other. And these little bumpy bits that you can see, kind of the middle of the plait, they are called the back bumps of your chain. But when we are beginners, we only need to be able to see those V's, and we need to be able to count how many we have, because that's going to help us keep track of how many stitches we're going to make in our next step. For now, this is all you need to focus on. Just practice on making your beginning chains. You don't have to rush it or get it perfect. Just give yourself a little time to practice, get more familiar with holding the hook in your hand, holding the yarn in a way that's comfortable and that allows you to keep the yarn past your hook once you've brought it over. When you're ready to take the next step and start working into your chains, I've already linked the next video in this beginner series below, where we gently build on what you've learnt today. Crochet really is something you can grow into stitch by stitch, and I'll be right here to guide you along the way.